The 18th of December 2022 was supposed to be a continuation of a festive year for Dannielle Finlay-Jones and her friends. The night before, she had introduced her boyfriend for the first time during their annual Christmas celebration. Spirits were high as the group played drinking games and enjoyed each other's company late into the night. Young love was blooming, but so was something much more disturbing. Dannielle Finlay-Jones was born in Australia to her parents, Jackie and Graham. She was always known as Danny to friends and family. She had one brother, Blake, and lived in a middle-class neighborhood near Sydney. Danny's childhood was perfectly average. She had lots of friends, fought and made up with her brother, and had hopes and dreams for the future. Danny was a friendly and outgoing woman who loved to dance and stay active. She had two major passions in life: football and education. She was a special needs teacher at Bates Drive School, and in her spare time, she was a captain for the Ramsgate Rams Women's Football Club, where she had been playing for 25 years. Danny was academically gifted as well. She had a diploma in children's services and certificates in education and community service. Danny and her mom were particularly close. It was Jackie who got her daughter into football in the first place, and they had both been recognized for their lifetime commitment to the club. They also lived together, which gave Jackie a front row seat to the ups and downs of Danny's life. Danny often confided in her mom about her dreams of getting married and having children of her own one day. She had watched as her friends began settling down and having children at age 31. She felt it was time for her to do the same. In 2022, Danny decided to join Bumble in hopes of meeting the one. In early December that year, she connected with Ashley Gaddy through the app. It was a turning point in Danny's life, a tragic and fateful turning point. Ashley was 33 years old and a tradie from Sydney. He had one child from a previous relationship, and he told Danny that he was ready to settle down and start a family. To Danny, he seemed like the perfect package, a guy with a good job who loved children and wanted to build a future together. When Ashley introduced himself to Jackie when he was picking up Danny for a date, she could feel their connection right away. She would later say, "She just seemed to click with him. I think he told her everything she wanted to hear. He was only interested in a serious relationship. He wanted to settle down. He really wanted children." After knowing each other for 1 week and going on 2 dates, Danny thought Ashley might just be the one. On the 17th of December, she invited him to join her and her friends for a Christmas drinks at a pub in Western Sydney. It was a week before Christmas, and spirits were high. But that wasn't what caught the attention of her friends. It was a huge deal for Danny to show up with a guy, because she had never introduced a partner to her friends before. Ever. It was obvious that Danny was head over heels for Ashley. The entire evening she stayed close to him and seemed to hang on every word he said. As the night wore on, the group began playing drinking games, including a round of Truth or Dare. When it was Danny's turn, she casually admitted to a one-night stand from years ago. Her friends weren't fazed, but Ashley was instantly upset about her confession. He got up from the table and stormed out of the pub. Danny followed after him, but it took 20 minutes for her to convince him to come back and join the group. The argument was tense and uncomfortable for the group to watch, but it seemed as though they had smoothed things over, and her friends didn't think too much of it. By midnight, the pub was ready to close, and the group called it a night. Danny and Ashley were in no state to drive, so one of her friends invited them to spend the night in her spare room. Taylor lived with her partner not far from the pub, and together the four of them caught a rideshare service home. At around 1:30, they headed off to their rooms and went to sleep. A few hours later, Taylor and her partner woke up to a noise. They thought the sounds were from Danny and Ashley having sex, so they had a giggle and went back to sleep. They could never have imagined that those weren't the noises of playful lovemaking. They were the sounds of Danny being murdered. It was nearly 2:30 p.m. the next day when Taylor became concerned about Danny. Sleeping in after a night of drinking wouldn't be so unusual, except neither Danny or Ashley had come out of the room to get a glass of water or go to the toilet. So Taylor decided it was about time to check on the couple to see if there was anything they needed. When she knocked on the door to the spare room, there was no answer and no noise. She cracked the door open and saw the shape of her friend's body under a blanket on the floor. Strange, but even stranger, there was no movement under the blanket. Taylor crept closer to the blanket and pulled it back where her friend's head should have been. What she found underneath was almost unrecognizable. Danny's face was swollen and blood had crusted over her temples and matted her hair. Dark bruises completely covered her neck, and worst of all, Danny wasn't moving. Taylor immediately called the police and emergency services arrived soon after. Sadly, Danny was unable to be revived, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. Her autopsy would later confirm that she had died from blunt force trauma, manual strangulation, and suffocation. The medical examiner noted that Danny's killer had likely sat on top of her, using his legs to hold her down. He had then held her neck and covered her mouth so that she couldn't scream while he beat her to death. In her brother's words, there was nothing she could have done. She was completely overpowered. Meanwhile, Ashley was nowhere to be seen. He wasn't in Taylor's house, and as detectives cordoned off the crime scene, they found that the bedroom window's security screen had been cut open. Taylor was able to provide a detailed description of the man Danny had brought home, and the police quickly launched a manhunt for Ashley Gaddy. Within hours, they confirmed him as the prime suspect and released a nationwide alert. His photo was plastered across news channels and social media, urging anyone with information to come forward. Despite intense media coverage, it took officers 2 days to track Ashley down. They had tapped his phone and social media accounts in an attempt to narrow down his location. During a phone call to his mother, he denied any involvement in Danny's death. He said, "We slept in separate beds. I didn't do it. I panicked. I woke up at 9:30 and there's a body in the next room." After nearly 2 days on the run, Ashley was finally located at Fletcher's Lookout in the iconic Blue Mountains. He was found on the wrong side of the safety barriers, clinging to a cliff face. For 12 hours, police negotiators tried to coax him down. It took until midnight before they were able to get specialist police officers to bring him over the cliff, and he was taken into custody. The following day, he was charged with Danny's murder. It was only then that Danny's family found out exactly who she had been spending her time with. Ashley was nothing like the easygoing traddy she thought she was falling for. It turns out that Ashley hadn't seen his son from his previous relationship for several years. The child's mother commented that Ashley had lost interest in being a father when the boy was just a toddler. It's not known what information Ashley gave Danny about his home life, but after his arrest, it was revealed he lived at home with his mother after being kicked out of a boarding house a few months earlier. His phone revealed that he was chatting to several girls at the same time he was dating Danny. She thought he might be the one, but to him, she was simply one of many. Ashley's employment history was equally sketchy. He rarely held down a job for more than a few months at a time. He had tried drilling, being a forklift driver, a personal trainer, a tree trimmer, mechanic, and garbage collector, but nothing stuck. In his CV, he claimed to be an excellent communicator and self-motivated with great time management. But previous managers of Ashley came forward to say he regularly didn't show up for work and his employment was terminated. But being a useless dad and an unreliable employee are not nearly the worst of what Ashley was. Ashley wasn't at all interested in being a loving partner. He was, in fact, a serial domestic offender. In the 5 years before he met Danny, he had 5 restraining orders taken out against him by 5 separate women. None of the allegations against him were minor. In 2021, he was found guilty of assaulting one of his exes by choking and stalking her. He had convictions for common assault, assaulting occasionally bodily harm, and intentionally choking a person without consent. There were also convictions of stalking and intimidating with the intention of causing fear or physical harm. One of his accusers gave some insight into what it was like to be in a relationship with Ashley. She shared how he would rip her hair out from the scalp and regularly choke her. One minute, everything was okay, and we're cooking dinner. Next minute, he's belting the hell out of me. Somehow the judge in the 2021 case decided Ashley was a low risk of reoffending, and he was sentenced to community service and a $300 fine. In 2022, he faced more serious charges, but he was released on 12 months bail. 6 months later, he met and murdered Danny. It's devastating to consider that 5 of Ashley's prior victims had the courage to come forward and file charges against him. Maybe they were attempting to protect themselves, or maybe they were also thinking about any future women who might have the misfortune to cross paths with him. And yet, despite having pictures of the injuries he left on their bodies and there being a clear pattern of escalation in his violence, none of their concerns were taken seriously. The direct result of that was Danny's murder. In other words, it was a murder waiting to happen. But this case has one final, devastating blow to land. Ashley will never face justice for what he did to Danny and so many other women. On the 6th of April 2024, he was found dead in his prison cell. A statement from authorities reports that he died of self-inflicted injuries. In the wake of Danny's murder, her friends and family joined a growing chorus, urging the Australian government to provide greater protection for women, particularly for men with histories of violence. They demanded stronger safeguards and reforms in the bail system to prevent similar tragedies, ensuring that individuals with violent records are not allowed to slip through the cracks. There are also growing calls for dating apps to run background checks on users. Danny is remembered for her bright smile and passion for life. Her football team wears a black armband in recognition of her contribution to their sport, and a bench in her memory was built on the grounds. The school where she taught has also planted a memorial garden named in her honor. Despite the pain of Danny's loss, her brother is hopeful that her death will mean something. We're just hoping it wasn't for nothing, hoping there is change, and that fewer women are killed in the future.